Ah, Call of Duty 2, where online multiplayer all began for us console folks. It was a simpler time then. One didn't have to worry about which perk to choose for the third slot, or which kill streak would work best on the map they were about to play. No sir, Call of Duty 2 was straight gun versus gun, and skill versus skill. On the Xbox 360, Call of Duty 2 released on November 22nd, 2005 as a launch title. While some criticized its 4v4 online setting, others, including myself, praised it for its simplicity and for its incredibly addicting features. As a World War II shooter, for the online portion of the game, you fought for either allies or Axis teams, and your weapons and nades were dependent on which side you were on. No create a class, no customization, no sprinting, no melee lunge. You got what you got, and for many of us, it was more than enough to keep us playing for years. Let's get the pistols out of the way first. They sucked. Moving on. As far as the weapons went, the bolt-action rifles reigned absolutely supreme. With the very fast aim-down sights for the scoped bolts and a favorable lack of hit markers, it was your duty to become familiar and at the very least adept with the bolt-action rifles. See what I did there? I said duty. And we're talking about Call of... Never mind. Americans had the Springfield, Russians had the Mosin, Germans had the Car, and the English had the Lee Enfield. All with the exception of the Springfield had the option to play without a scope attached to it. Back then, they weren't called sniper lobbies. It was just Call of Duty 2, and almost everyone used bolt actions. Now the other weapons weren't bad, far from it. On the American side, the Thompson submachine gun was deadly up close, and the Garand could rack you up plenty of kills if you had a quick trigger finger. Imagine if the G3 from COD 4 only had an 8-round clip, and would only reload if you shot all 8 first. Boom. You have the Garand. You might be thinking this sounds dreadful, but in a game like COD 2 where recoil was very much present with all guns, the Garand gave you a nice advantage at a distance. That is, of course, unless you were up against the bolt action. Bolt actions. The Germans had the MP44, which was likely the best gun to use besides the bolt actions in the entire game. When burst fired, this gun was a headshot machine. The English shared most of the same weapons as the Americans, and the Russians had the almighty PPSH. The PPSH in COD 2 had a lot of recoil. However, it made up for this with a round drum of over 70 bullets. This was the ultimate spray and pray weapon back in the day, and it was glorious. The last gun to talk about was the shotgun, which many considered to be the noob tube of Call of Duty 2. Because the weapons of World War II had a lot of recoil, close quarters had a tendency to get a little clunky. The shotgun itself wasn't really all that insane. It didn't have a crazy range or spread to it, but since the other guns required finesse, the shotgun would absolutely crush up close, and it provided the player with some extremely aggravating, or satisfying, experiences. To close the chapter on this one, I'll say that COD 2 had a simplicity to it that I often miss when it comes to this series. The fact that Black Ops is shipping with a true bare-bones playlist is music to my ears, or fingers. Whatever best fits this metaphor. Well, music and fingers doesn't really make sense though. We finally have the option of going back to straight gun versus gun, and that, my friends, is good news. Look, I'm going to be upfront with you. COD 3 was a major disappointment to most Call of Duty fans, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I will say that the fact that Treyarch pumped out a game like this in 8 months is a credit to them. It's understandable that the game didn't meet the expectations set by Infinity Ward's COD 2, given the short amount of development time they had. And most players don't understand this. They simply didn't have enough time to make a great game, and it showed. COD 3 was also set in World War II, pitting Axis and Allies against each other once again. The main differences, and there were plenty, were that Sprint was introduced for the first time, a medic was introduced with the ability to revive downed teammates, LMGs had their own dedicated class, each class had a special ability attached to the RBs such as airstrikes or landmines. Vehicles were introduced, and along with them a rocket launcher class to balance them out, and instead of 4v4 we had 12v12 online multiplayer. While some criticized COD 2 for its small team battles, making the argument that it didn't really show the true potential of next gen, It was that small team setting which made the simplicity and charm of that game truly shine. When COD 3 introduced big team matches that sometimes ran for upwards of 45 minutes, they changed the game so dynamically that it hardly even felt like Call of Duty. While Call of Duty 3 may not have been a resounding success, it did send a message loud and clear that Treyarch was not going to hesitate on innovating and that they weren't content piggybacking Infinity Ward's original content. At the very least, Treyarch was trying new ideas and were anything but complacent. This mentality would really show in titles yet to be discussed.